to a show.
I'm Anura Mathis. Says of Freedom to Fight, because I'm the podcast host of Freedom to Fight. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology. Professional counseling is the same difference. But I wanted to pursue getting my PhD because I really, really, really love research, clinical research. So your grandfather being you said statistician? Yeah, working in statistics. Yeah, that is like, that's something that lights my fire. Like, I really would like to pursue that at some point in my career and have gotten some experience being a part of research projects. So that is definitely a passion of mine. And I'm a pretty introverted person. So like working in a basement or a research lab, like studying numbers or patterns or whatever, that is kind of a dream. It's not that I don't like people, but I do like that relationship with people where I can be observant rather than being kind of immersed in, like, drama develops in most groups of people, but I try to avoid all of that. So I just wanted to compliment him because and he's a professor. Like that's something else that I've looked into. I've been offered a few opportunities that I've turned down. So not a professor, but and I should say that I should say that I thought for a long time in my career that I needed to have a PhD to become a professor or to practice research, or you really don't. I've been offered these jobs without having a PhD. I've been offered to be a director of a graduate program. I've been offered these positions without that degree. And so there is definitely a difference, but I can still pursue all of those things without having a PhD. So just wanted to say that.
And I was not at all aware of that. Yeah, I always assumed like, oh man, you gotta have a PhD to do all that stuff. I'm just gonna go ahead and hang out and do what I do. So that's good though. You've positioned yourself where, even though you are pursuing, further education, you're still in the good spot where you're like, look, there's still opportunities for me. I can still do a lot of things prior to reaching the mountaintop. It's all about collecting the trinkets along the way. So, and for everyone listening, welcome to Off the Mats podcast. It's me, it's Dante. And as our wonderful guest here has introduced themselves already. And a big part of that was because I was like, I want to make sure I'm saying your name right. And she was like, I got you covered. So thank you for that, Anura.
Yeah. So it's like Anura. Yeah. Okay. So I used to wait tables for a long time, for like 10 years of my life. And I would write down on a piece of paper, my notepad where I would write my orders and give it to customers. I would write down AN-YOUR, like your, and then -A, so that people can see how it's phonetically said. Anura. But the thing is, my name is not, I don't have an American name. And I should say America as far as United States, because there's a lot of Americas. Anyway, but my name is from the other part of the world. It's from Tibet. But there's versions of my name in India and I believe in Nepal as well. I found out in Mongolia as well. So I have an Asian name. And the first three letters of my name, ANU, is pronounced Anu in those cultures. And so that would change how you would say my name depending on where you come from. So Anura rather than Anura. It's very, like I'm not going to make people say my name with an accent because they're already having a hard time anyway. So I just wanted to clarify.
No, absolutely. That's it. Even thinking about it, when it comes to names, period, it can get tricky because, you know, for the most part on the podcast or on social media, even people see me as Jake. Like Jake. Oh, Jake is pretty easy. That's perfect. Perfect. Not a tough word. Not a tough name. We got this. And it's like, oh, the last name Dante. Easy enough. Most people know Dante for the most part. Some people say Dante. It's been done. I remember being in school, and when people put my real name out there, it's like, ooh, that's not even close to my name, or they would misspell it, like horribly misspelled. And I remember when I moved in with my grandparents, my grandfather saw me write my name. He goes, you're misspelling your name, right? I was like, nah, that's what my teacher always wrote.
Oh,
No, that's not even close to right. You got all the wrong letters. Like the D is correct. At least it's capitalized. I was like, oh, okay. Then he writes my name out and then he's like, there's an accent mark on the E at the end. I was like, oh, word? I didn't know that either. Then eventually I just started just shortening it to Dante, especially when I started teaching. But, for the sake of the kids, I shortened it up so people, they could say it easier. And I just kind of stuck with it as far as friendships go. And then my family actually calls me Jake. I don't know why. They just call me Jake.
Okay.
I don't get it. Well, there's rumors as to why. There's three different stories. One is my mom's friend just said, oh, he looks like he should be a Jake. And the family just start calling me Jake. It's like, that's rude.
Okay.
Just say to my mom, like, hey, so I don't like your kid's name. And I was in the hospital a lot as a kid. And apparently, from what I'm understanding, the nurses, for some reason, started calling me Jake. So it just stuck. I was like, again, I'm pretty sure my chart has my name on it. Y'all just decided, yeah, we're going to call this kid something else. But for whatever reason, my family just stuck with it. And then the third one was like my mom just decided, I think I want to name him Jake instead. I was like, I feel like that might be the more truthful one, the more accurate one, but who really knows? But my family calls me Jake. So I decided, just for the sake of keeping employers from looking me up and be like, oh my goodness, look at this guy's social media, I just decided, let's go with Jake. And here we are. So yeah.
So I'm curious because I refer to you as Dante. I think I always have, but maybe I've called you Jake before. I wonder, do you feel differently if somebody calls you Jake or somebody calls you Dante?
So Dante is pretty normal to me. It's the norm for me. Jake it still kind of rattles me because it's like, oh my goodness, my family calls me Jake. So when I hear Jake out in public, so I've run into a couple people here and there, and they've never referred to me as anything before other than, like, oh, this BJJ Wiki guy. And it's like, oh, Jake, or thanks, Jake, or what's up, Jake? And I've had teammates a few times call me Jake, and which makes sense because there are a lot of times in the gym, especially in the beginning, you don't know a person's name, and it's just like, okay, well, I'm going to train with this person, and then once there's this relationship built, it's like, okay, let's get this person's name and put it in the Rolodex. Yeah. But a few of the people only recognize me from social media, so they were calling me Jake. And it was weird to me because I was like, who the hell are they called? Oh, shit, I'm the only one in here. That's me. They're referring to me. Oh, hey. Okay, cool. Now it's been sorted out. Now they just call me Dante. I'm like, okay, it's Dante. We get it now. But Dante is preferred. But if someone calls me Jake, I don't, it's not weird to me anymore. But I still try to point out, like, hey, so this is Dante. How are you guys?
I know you as Dante, so that's how I'm gonna refer to you.
Perfectly fine. perfectly fine. So I wanted to have you on the podcast. First off, I was on your podcast, Freedom to Fight. So thank you
Yes,
for having me on as a guest. It was a
it was
wonderful
wonderful.
experience. So thank you. And I wanted to basically, have you on my show. Actually, we've discussed both Off the Mats, which is what we're on now, and also So You Like Horror, which
Yeah.
is the horror movie podcast. And we'll discuss that, at another time. I got some themes, and we've discussed, a couple different movies. But I want to have you on and, just get your story for the listeners here, because I know there are times when it gets kind of tricky, hosting a podcast. You're hearing
Yeah.
so many different stories
Uh-huh.
and no one's hearing your story. And sometimes people don't want to share their stories. And I think more often than not, other times people are like, you know what? I'm fine with sharing my story, but you don't want to, just make an episode, entire episode like, hey, so here's my full story. And, you know, it could get a little wonky sometimes, at least for me. So I want to have you on. I want to just hear a little bit about your background with, training martial arts, and the benefits of martial arts for mental health. Like essentially, wondering, how do you feel that training martial arts contributes to bettering mental health?
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you having me on, and I really appreciate you coming on my podcast because it was at a like the peak of like an issue with racism going on in my community, and it was like right before I moved from there, and I also got a chance to kind of talk more candidly than I had before about my concussion, the recovery around that, and just my experience start well, maybe not starting, but like my experience training in BJJ and Muay Thai and wrestling. So I'm really grateful for that, and I will tell your audience how I got into martial arts. So I call myself a trauma therapist because my lens on seeing illness is through trauma. I know that's a pretty general term, and trauma is pretty general. It's pretty subjective. So something that affects one person, to where it kind of cripples them and stops their progress, may not affect me in the same way. So um, I do call myself a trauma therapist. I've got a master's degree in professional counseling psychology, but I say that to say that I know through trauma researchers, Bessel van der Kolk is an icon in trauma research, and he's also a professor. Body Keeps the Score is his book, but he talks about martial arts being a healing tool for trauma. And because I'm such a science nerd, and just I love research, and I really, what I wanted to do was take it from something I read in a book to something I've experienced myself. So moving out of state during the pandemic was really challenging, to then losing a ton of family members one after another, really. I had a substantial amount of trauma. Having a partner at the time going through his own issues, alcoholism, and going in and out of programs, and I needed to find a solution to managing all the trauma that was kind of thrown on me, and um, find a way to feel empowered through that, because despite all of the resiliency I had, I mean, I grew up in poverty. I've experienced poverty throughout my lifetime, in all of the years of education. So at least 7 years in higher education, 10 years experience outside of my education. Like it didn't really, when it comes to what do you do in real time? What do you do in the moment? Like I didn't really have, I didn't know what to do with all the trauma. So I'm really glad that I was open enough to be vulnerable in pursuing a self-defense class, that's all I did, is just Googled self-defense in my area and found a place and called the person and scheduled a time to take a free class. I took a women's class, and I didn't realize that instructor was a retired MMA fighter. Like, he was a professional fighter. And so, like, the things that I was learning through him, or that we were learning through him, were Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai, striking and grappling. And that these are really practical skills, because, to be honest, I've taken self-defense classes before in Texas, and they were not substantial. Like, it wasn't even all of my training in mental health. So working in residential facilities, working with in a men's residential facility, like, yeah, they'll teach you how to de-escalate a situation. But if you learn that once or twice a year, and there's not any you are setting people up to be in danger, because they think, oh, I went through this training, I know what to do.
Yep.
But when you're in a situation, you need to know not only what to do, but how to keep yourself calm, because you're activated. So how do I stay focused on the goal of subduing somebody or submitting someone and keeping myself safe, while, like, my heart is racing and I'm like, well, maybe they have a gun? Like, you really need to know what you're doing. And there has never been a time that somebody taught me what I needed to know. So I'm very grateful that I found the self-defense classes. And then I was invited to the main classes with all of the members. Of course, mainly men. There's a few women there, but maybe two women there. But I am grateful for that, because that's part of my personality, is to kind of veer off from groups. I don't like cattiness. I don't like drama. I wanted to come learn a practical skill. So that was really what was best for me, was to be in a group of people that varying skill levels, that were going to be kind and patient and teach me things that they know are effective. So learning, I think I really leaned into Muay Thai first, and that, like, almost instantaneously changed my my confidence level. Like, it was very empowering to see someone show me the move, show me this is the combo, and then, like, be able to practice it myself, and then get feedback right away. Like, I don't know if you would agree with this, but I do think that, I don't want to put this on everybody, I don't want to generalize too much, but I do think people in the Black community are naturally gifted in athletic ways. And I think that whatever I was doing before kind of geared me up to be really good at Muay Thai. So from start to finish, like, I'm not done training in Muay Thai, but I haven't been training in Muay Thai lately. But I'm naturally good at that, and I'm naturally good at BJJ as well, because the other part of developing my skills in therapy and psychology, you're developing your intuition. And I think that's a huge piece of just being a fighter, to really know when to do X, Y, and Z. Is like, yeah, it'd be nice to just, like, perform the moves, but you've got to put it in the situation, in the context of, this is when I should do this, because they've slightly moved or bumped or what. Now I have this opportunity. Like, you've got to develop your intuition. So yeah, training and BJJ was, like, really, like, something that I feel like I, without being too romantic about it, something I was meant to do. So that and wrestling, I have a love for all three of the martial arts that I've leaned into. And I do want to start competing. That got disrupted previously because of an injury, but I would like to compete. I would like that to be a part of my life.
Good. I think, as you were, just talking about instincts and just intuition and everything, that's just, another part of the journey, another connector to it all. And, when we talk about self-defense and we talk about, these martial arts that we participate in, how do you know it really works? I mean, sure, you might be training in the gym, you're going over the moves, but, when you compete, you're going against somebody that's, it's the closest thing to, fighting for your life outside of, actually having to fight for your life out in the streets, and, also, we've seen the videos, we've, heard the stories of, this competitor or this MMA fighter for that matter, having to use their training in a situation, whether it be home invasion or someone trying to, steal their pocketbook on the streets. And then, next thing you see the video of, said fighter holding someone in a rear naked choke, or, someone breaking into your home and, they didn't pick the wrong house. And
you picked the right one, actually.
and now that your training is being tested, and in most cases it's going to work. So, moving to that next phase and competing, it's a big deal. And, I can't wait to hear more about it. And when you get back into it and get going, because like I've said it plenty of times on here, I don't compete. I've done it. I didn't particularly, and, granted, I was younger. And I did, and I felt like I don't really like the feelings of this. And that's the thing. A lot of our competitors out there, may not necessarily like the feeling, but they still go out there and do it. And I think, it's very admirable, for any of you that do it or want to do it. So, take that next step and get out there and it's not even just about, getting medals. It's about getting that experience. So.
Yeah. Well, I will say I don't like performing. I am a very introverted person, so I don't like being put on the spotlight. But I will say that it's a phenomenon. It really isn't. I keep getting put in the position to be put in the spotlight. Like, okay. I can make a lot of examples, but this is putting myself in the spotlight. No,
Sure.
I've just been offered a lot of positions because people like develop trust from me like immediately. Like you're capable of handling this or doing this for us, and being a leader really is what I'm trying to get around to saying. Like I I don't like it, but I think the things that you don't like, the things that you resist, are probably the things that you need to lean into. So in part, that martial arts was something I was afraid of because I've been conditioned to think violence is bad, and there's no reason for you to ever hit anybody, or like there's a lot of circumstances where you might need to hit somebody. And I'm glad that I was able to kind of overcome that. But as far as competing, like I was a distance runner for a big part of my younger years. So from like 6th grade to, on and off throughout through high school, I had an injury. I had a couple of injuries. Of course I did. Running, like that can put a lot of wear and tear on your body, and just being young and like fighting with your brothers and sisters and just, roughhousing and stuff. But yeah, so I have some experience with competing, or to me, it feels like performing, like people are in the stands watching you. But yeah, I was a distance runner for at least 6 years. And, that never, the butterflies in your stomach, that never went away from me. But I think that is a tool. I think you're supposed to overcome that fear, because on the other side of that fear is what you're trying to obtain. So attain. I don't want to stray away from it, especially with having the injury, because the injury occurred in training. And what I've learned from a lot of other athletes is that's what happens. It's
Yeah.
hardly that they get super injured during a fight, or they'll take a beating in a fight, but not to the point where they're hospitalized, or not, there are faulty ways in training, and that's what happened to me. So um, that will not deter me from competing, because if I'm around people that are competent and are using safety practices, then that won't ever happen again. So I just wanted to mention that.
Good, good. That's, part of the journey. Unfortunately, while you're out there training and working to be the best that you can be, injuries will come along the line, but it's how you respond, how bounce back from it is what really defines, you as a competitor, as an athlete, as a person. You get some people, you know, using football terminology. I'm a Detroit Lions fan, and they had a player on their team. They drafted him, I want to say number 3. He was a top 5 draft pick, Charlie Rogers. He played for Michigan State. I'm a Michigan fan, so I'm not crazy about state, but whatever. We're gonna keep that conversation out of here. But Charlie Rogers got drafted to the Lions, and he was good. He was real good. He suffered his first injury ever once he made it into the league and became a professional player, and he didn't bounce back very well from it. He had never been injured ever through high school, through college, nothing. And he suffered, I think he had a couple injuries, but the bounce back from those injuries, he just couldn't come back from it. And the thing is, even me just saying that, it's like, it could have been something really debilitating, but I think also just, mentally, I think it wore on him. I think, that does happen to people. It's happened to me. I've had injuries where I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna come back from this. In my older age, when I was younger, I get injured. I was just like, I'll be all right. I'll power through. I busted my meniscus. I was like, I'll be all right. I just gotta, kind of limp a little bit when I run, but I can still do this. When you get older, it's like, ooh, strained my groin.
Something,
But
yeah.
can't put my socks on right now. But
it's a
bouncing back.
Injury.
Oh yeah. But bouncing back from the injuries and then still wanting to pursue, the activity, I think is huge. So, again, my hat's off to you. Super happy to hear that.
I am still in recovery, and I think I should probably talk about this a bit more in my podcast, or at least on my social media, like making some sort of posting some sort of information about recovery, because there's different stages, and I think
Sure.
I think part of recovery is kind of facing your fears. So I have been back into several other gyms. Like I've tried again, but part of my injury was not just physical, having a concussion. It was my emotional and mental health was okay. Well, it's something that I love so much, enough to make a podcast about it, enough to like
Yeah.
it's part of my personality now. It's hardly, just something I do over there. Like it's part of me now. Like if
Sure.
something like that could potentially kill me, like is this what do I do? That this was kind of an existential crisis of like, is that are these people I can trust? Can I trust myself? Can I trust this martial art? Like, can I do this anymore? I It took me a really long time. It took me a lot of therapy. Still going to be going through therapy about it. it took a lot of movement and a lot of different changes in my life for me to come back around to it. But I think that's all part of the recovery process, the healing process, and
Sure.
it for sure made me stronger.
Well, yeah. And again, it goes back to, that bounce back. There's a, you know, mental resilience that comes out as well. Though, there is trauma from this, look, I want to get back to it. I want to get back out there. But you got to get through, some of the hurdles. And, that's where I think a lot of athletes kind of run into this weird thing where, when you mention something like sports psychology, you get some people that, turn their nose up to that. Like, I don't need that. More so old school athletes, older athletes.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're kind of in a time now where you're getting more people understanding, like, look, it's not just the physical of this injury that got me. I think mentally, you might have, some butterflies, you might have, kind of this crutch now that you're trying to get over. As we bounce back from injuries and just kind of going through the traumas of, what's happened before, it can mess with you. Whether it be, you know, separating the shoulder and now you're worried,
Mm-hmm.
you know, are you going to re-injure it, or head trauma, you get a concussion, that adds up. So again, you being in active recovery and looking to get back into it, you know, I can't say enough good things about it, because to be ashamed to, take an injury and then just think, oh, I'm not cut out for this, and you never
Yeah.
come back. So good for you.
Thank you. I think that's also part of my personality, because I've had so many experiences where things have tried to knock me down, like not just challenges in general, but like specifically, I've had a lot of people try to get in the way um, this journey. Like there are a substantial amount of people that don't support my efforts in training in martial arts and having a podcast about it. And even the people that we talked about last time, my landlords and their friends and stuff, that who were harassing me, were intentionally trying to cause technical issues on my they
Yeah.
knew I had a podcast. They had control over the internet. They would turn it off all the time, which is literally why I went to the destination where I was to record our podcast. But even trying to do that, I was getting calls from police officers trying to investigate what they were doing to me. So during the podcast recording, so it was just so many disruptions. But that to me just reinforces that I'm doing something right. Because why do the people that oppose it, why do they oppose it? Why is it, why are they making their lives to try to stop what I'm doing in my life? Well, it must be something pretty important. You're listening to it, you're watching it. Like, I'm sure people that support me do too. I need to keep pushing forward.
Well, and that's a key quality in a martial artist, is pushing forward. I
Yeah.
mean, like you say, you have people disrupting, what you're doing. All right, well, not sure why you in my business, why you worried about me. I think, in the bigger picture of just everything, it's like, if people just worried about what they're doing and not what someone else is doing, as long as it's not affecting their day, I think we'd all be happier. You know, like it's like having siblings. You know, like I don't worry about what my brother's doing. As long as my little brother is safe, he ain't
Yeah.
hurting nobody else. You know, go ahead and I don't know, cheer for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, that's not what we do in this family, but I mean, that's what you want to do. Go ahead. I'm gonna judge you a little bit, but still, it's not affecting my life. I don't think
Sure.
anyone should be, disrupting someone else if it's not, having any effect on their life, adverse effect on their life specifically. but whatever. Like, you keep pushing, you keep doing you, and I think that's again just a key quality in doing martial arts and just living life. Period. And I mean, again, you're having your master's degree. Adversity is being in your way. You continue to push through and get where you are. So
I really, really appreciate the praise. And I do want to say that you said people trying to disrupt your life, that like, let me just say this in general. I think there is a place for all of those people. And it really gets under my skin that they do that, but that's their goal. Their goal is to get under my skin. Their goal is to cause obstacles. And there's a place for haters. There's a
yeah,
place for those people, whether they're coming from racism or from some other place of hate. Like, they don't, I mean, if it's not me, it's somebody else. They have to fuel that into their hatred into something, because they don't have enough self-reflection. Like, it's always somebody else's fault. It's always like, you were, oh, that's what you said, that like, it's not bothering you, so why are you causing it? It is bothering them. Because
yeah,
having somebody like me, a woman, or somebody that's Black, or somebody that's younger than them, or some whatever different circumstance than them, like, it does get under their skin. It is a problem for them, because it doesn't fit into their life schema. Like,
yeah.
they need to act out like this, because that's their duty. Even in connection with their God, they think they're acting in the right, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna let them. Because it doesn't really have to affect me.
Ooh, and that's the thing too. It's like misery loves company. So, you might have somebody that they're not happy. So if I'm not happy, you're not allowed to be happy, and unfortunately, that's just in so many different walks of life, whether it be, again, martial arts, education, just, you know, being a kid and having fun. We have parents who function that way too, where they're like, look, you're not doing the thing that I like, so I don't want you to be happy about what you're doing that you do like. So it's like, why people can't just, again, leave others alone, I don't know. But at the end of the day, what matters is you push on and you say, you know what, I'm not going to let you stop me. I'm not going to let anything deter me, because the moment that we give up, that's the moment that, that opposing force wins. So, you know, I don't know that, I'm the best speaker on that, because I've had my moments where I've, kind of given up on projects where I'm like, and I look back and I was like, damn it, I let them win. But, I'm working on me. I'm
I
growing.
I don't know. I mean, I think you should definitely choose your battles, but I
Sure.
find that in the circumstances that I did push forward, like, I was rewarded in some way. Like, rather, I got stronger, I got smarter, I got more skillful, I gained something from saying, you know what? You're not going to dictate how I'm going to live my life because it makes you uncomfortable. It's good
True.
that it makes you uncomfortable, because what other um, experience would catch your attention and then make you self reflect? They're choosing not to self reflect, but it riled them up enough for them to be able to. So I gave them the opportunity to better themselves if they choose to. They're identifying some sort of reaction within themselves that they could then address if they wanted to. So, it's a good thing that it ruffles their feathers.
That is true. Very true. So, as a martial artist and a mental health professional advocate, practitioner, what would be some advice you would give someone considering martial arts as a means to improve their mental health?
Well, I can say from my experience and what I experience other people experiencing. So what I observe from other people is I don't think I consider myself shy. I mean, introversion is not the same as being shy. Like
No.
I started a podcast. That's gonna give me exposure and kind of put myself out there. So I don't consider that to be shy, but I can say that it did build my confidence. And the way that it built my confidence is, well, it definitely made me feel like I was capable of starting a podcast, but capable of really doing pretty much anything. Like, it was the key for me. It was like something that, again, it sounds romantic, but something I was meant to do. So, like, it unlocked whatever parts of me that didn't get fulfilled in other parts of my life, not through any romantic relationships, not any friend circles, not any family dynamics. Like, it was a missing piece to say, I can set these goals in Muay Thai and BJJ and wrestling. Like, I can set these goals and I can achieve the goals. So I was doing that as a runner, but the reason why it gave me practical skills. So now I can be anywhere and feel confident. I don't think I ever, ever, ever had that being a woman ever. Like, being in those jobs that I was talking about. I was working in a men's facility overnight with people that had very serious mental illness, that honestly, the programs that I was in were not effective. So being in a program that was really not helping someone get out of crisis, and then I was just like in the mix, like thinking, okay, well, I can depend on these safety measures, and then realizing they were failing. Like, I was not ever really safe in any of those jobs. And now I feel like if I were ever in a psychiatric hospital or something like that in the future, like, I feel like I would be able to protect myself and restrain someone or submit someone without harming them. Like, I have control over my power. I recognize my power, like I was empowered by martial arts, but I had control over it. And that just gave me confidence throughout my entire life. Like, every single obstacle that I faced, from the time that I had the concussion, prior to that as well, but from the time that I had the concussion to now, I've gone through so many crises that I was like, oh, well, I went through this, I can get through it. Like, it's
True.
like no thing. Like, and people look at me like, is everything okay? Like, things are not okay, period, in the world, period. And I'm experiencing some of those crises that, are relevant to me, but I don't have a false sense of confidence anymore. I don't feel like I have to depend on people. I don't feel like I have to live my life the way I used to. Like, I don't have to be afraid of most things. I don't have to live with fear. Period. I experience fear, but I don't have to see it as, this is going to be an obstacle, or this is something that I have to, I can't pursue because of fear. Like, I just don't look at it like that anymore. I feel like like I feel like a character in a video game. I've got a collection of tools, which is what you do in therapy. You go to therapy, you talk about an issue, you learn different tools, different behavioral things that you can practice. Okay, I'll respond this way next time, or I'll think about it this way next time. You learn these tools. It's the same thing in martial arts. I'm
Sure.
practicing it with my my fists and my body, but, like, it's the same concept. So I think martial arts is like therapy.
Okay. All right. I agree. I've always used the term, jujitsu is my therapy, and I've gotten a lot of pushback from that
We talked about this
over,
last time too.
and it's like, people are like, well, therapy is therapy, and jiu-jitsu can't be therapy, lifting weights can't be therapy, running can't be therapy. I was like, well, look, I think anything can be therapy. Does talking help? Absolutely. It can help. But for some people, maybe that's not their route. I think so many people who like to put things like that in a box, they look at life as one size fits all. Well, I have to go talk to someone. You have to go talk to someone. Like jiu-jitsu doesn't work for me as therapy, so it shouldn't work for you as therapy. And the truth is, when we're going through any kind of crisis, any kind of trauma, any kind of emotional matters, we all handle it differently. When my foster mother passed away, I found out on a Tuesday afternoon, and I had jiu-jitsu Wednesday morning, and I went in to train, and I just got lost in the reps. And I thought about my foster mom a little bit, but I wanted to get lost in those reps.
Yeah.
After I got done training, class was over, I sat down in a corner and I cried. And I felt relieved though. There are a lot of things that went through my mind, about my foster mom. And there are a lot of things that went through my mind regarding my training, and it was all kind of interconnected. Whether it be the ideal of, this woman taking a chance on my brothers and I and rescuing us, or whether it be this coach taking a chance on me and rescuing me from myself. It's all interconnected. Again, it's different for everyone, but that's, how it played in my mind. And, for someone to say, well, jiu-jitsu can't be therapy for you, for you, maybe no, but for me, it worked. It helped me get through it. And it helps a lot of people get through tough times. So, we're not one size fits all. And that's the thing too, when it comes to therapy, it's not all one size fits all either. I'm sure you've spoken with people who, you have one approach for one person and a different approach for a different person. So
Certainly. And I'll clarify a bit, because I don't want to just leave it as martial arts or BJJ is there. Like, it is very therapeutic. And I think that, like you said, there's different ways to heal. You can't force somebody to heal in traditional therapy. I mean, it can be court ordered, and family can say, I'm not going to give you your inheritance unless you get sober, or whatever the dynamic is, and people can go through the process, but it's not the same if you're not willing to do it. So there has to be other means of healing. And I I think that, yes, martial arts is very empowering to me, and it changed my personality. That may not happen for every person. It may not be somebody's thing, they may not enjoy choking someone out. They may not, before I was introduced to it, I hated it. To be honest, I dated somebody way back when that loved UFC and wanted to watch the fights every weekend. And I hated that part about him, so much so that I considered breaking up with him over that, because I did not, it wasn't just like something I didn't like. Like, I was conditioned even in my religious culture, that doing that, it was like sinful. Like, do not behave in this way. Don't celebrate people that are behaving in this way. And now I feel just the opposite. It connects me to my spirituality. It connects me to my higher power, because I that the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the very top of it is self-actualization. So the very bottom is, your basic needs need to be met, shelter and food and clean water and things that every human being needs. But at the very top, people also need to reach that point of self-actualization, because that I think that kind of completes our whole human experience. And you're not supposed to live in fear. You know, you're supposed to observe different emotions, but you're not supposed to be a prisoner to them. So I just wanted to mention that I know that it may not be everybody's therapy, and that may trigger some people just phrasing it that way. But my advice is to find something that will resonate with you, like martial arts.
Well, I feel like if anyone's triggered by that, then they need to look at themselves in the mirror and figure out why are they so upset about, words.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
they I don't know. It just that's another thing too when it comes to people getting upset at other people. It's like, well, why are you so upset about it? Maybe you need to ask yourself some questions.
Hmm.
If I get upset because you like Ohio State, I gotta ask myself, why am I upset that they like this college football team? Oh, am I a Michigan fan? Well, absolutely, go blue. But is it affecting my day? No. Then don't
Yeah.
get mad. Move on with your life. Um, and kind of there as well, as we are just talking, that does kind of touch on the ideal of consistency, when it comes to discipline, as mental health and martial arts are related. One of the things there that you pointed out, if someone's being made to go to AA or therapy or anger management, any of these things, you know part of what matters is, you being in these programs, you got to want to put the work in to get the results. I had a friend, he had to go to anger management when he was younger. And, we talked about it. And one of the things that I kind of took from it was like, these types of things only work if you want them to work.
Hmm.
You go into them, you got to want to get something out of it. You can't go into, martial arts and just think, oh, I'm just going to do this. I remember meeting this guy at a party, and he was in really good shape, like, excellent shape. And he worked out all types of workouts. And he asked me about jiu-jitsu and goes, I was looking to, add this into my workout regimen, probably stop in, once every 3 weeks or so. And, just, add it to my program. And I was like, well, I guess, but that's not how it works.
Mm-mm.
If you went in once every 3 weeks, you're gonna get the shit kicked out of you. You're not gonna like it. You're gonna
Exactly.
quit. This is something you got to go to, preferably, multiple times per week. I go once per week, you know, but I also had a period where I was going every day.
Yeah.
So, I can kind of get away with it just a smidge. But, you know, to say, hey, I'm only going to do this every so often, you're not really getting much out of it. Not, and that goes the same for, going to therapy or going to, any kind of a program such as AA, NA, anger management, any of these things. It's like, if you're only going every so often, and to be fair, there are individuals that, have gone to AA. They're doing very well with their recovery, but they may not go all the time anymore, and they might have an incident or close to it, and they might show back up to the meeting. That's not to say you can't gain a benefit in those matters, but if you just go in day one, you say, well, I'm just going to do this once every 3 weeks, you're not going to gain any benefits from those things. And I feel like, when you connect the ideal of that to martial arts, or anything to martial arts, anything in life, requires consistency and a give a damn. As my coach said, you gotta, when you're training, your training has to have purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that's, very, very important.
Well, I totally agree with you, and maybe at different stages of training. I mean, because people have life come up, different stages of training. Once every
Yeah.
3 weeks might, but I think, like, perhaps it's like, the way that people approach therapy. I think if you're in crisis, you probably need to go, depending on your crisis and depending on your, the other things that you're doing to help heal yourself. It might be good to go a couple of times a week, maybe 3 times a week, for a little
Yeah.
while, and then changing that to maybe once a week and then twice a month. And it's not one size fits all, but
Yeah.
I do think that it just varies for people, but discipline is that consistency is really, really important to kind of progress in anything. I don't know what, wouldn't require some sort of consistency.
Sure. Um, is there an instance where martial arts might not be suitable for someone dealing with like a mental health matter or crisis or anything? Like, would there be a matter where you would think like maybe this person probably shouldn't be simulating murder with others?
That's a very good question. And I think, yeah, there is time. So I'll say that um I didn't go into martial arts thinking, well, I'm gonna fight the next person. you know, After class, I'm gonna go pick a fight. And if that's part of your personality, listen, I think that um I don't need to change anybody. I don't need to kind of gear people into I don't need to do that. If you want to change yourself, okay. But I think if your intention is to harm people, I don't think I don't think martial art, like if your intention is to go submit everybody and be the biggest person in the room, like I don't think that that's the right type of energy. I also don't think I'm going to speak very candidly about this. I think that men and women, and yes, there are non-binary people, and I accept everybody. I'm just going to speak in this dynamic. I
Sure.
don't know because I'm most comfortable speaking in this dynamic, but I've seen a lot of memes even lately that there are women that are not training in martial arts, but their significant other is, and there's a lot of jealousy there. I think if you have an issue with jealousy and you're bringing that into the martial arts, there's no room for that. I think that's how I got injured because people were jealous of my progress, people that I trusted, and I think that there's just no room for it. The other healing aspect that I got from martial arts was a community. I was around men specifically that I developed trust for. That's huge. Not only just, okay, we're gonna go work out together. Like, no, we're gonna try to choke each other out and put our our forearms in each other's necks and do whatever we need to do to submit someone. Like the fact that I allowed them to practice that on me and vice versa created a trusting relationship because I knew they weren't trying to hurt me. Like anybody that has that mentality that I need to go beat everybody up or I need to go pick some bar fights or some street fights. No, you don't need to be training in martial arts. I do think therapy would be the first step for you if you're open to that.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree. And I know there are people that when they found out I was doing jujitsu, I know there are a lot of people like, nah, not that guy. Like, don't teach him how to hurt nobody any further. But to be fair, I think martial arts was the thing that helped me most. It humbled me.
Mhm.
It let me realize very, very quickly that I wasn't the baddest dude in the room. And not everybody handles that well. So, a lot of people will quit. But for those of us that stick around because we're like, well, look, this just showed me how vulnerable I am out, in a live situation. I maybe need to gain some awareness. And that was my approach. It was really a matter of, you know, once I realized, oh, dude, I'm not the baddest dude. Then I understood, was like, I need to do this for my own safety, for the safety of my family, for the safety of my friends. And, it became a different mission versus like, I'm just going to do this to, get in, stay in good shape, because like the guy I mentioned who wanted to come in every 3 weeks, I was in a similar boat, but I wasn't thinking of coming in once every 3 weeks. I was like, well, I'm going to commit to this. And then when I went to my first like trial and I got beat up by a 14-year-old, I was like, I'm gonna commit to this because I want to beat that dude's ass. And I never did. We rolled right before he left for college, and we got, we're like in 50-50 the entire roll, just playing with each other's feet. I hate feet, but it was just this weird situation. But either way, that's that path and that story for a whole nother time. So, Anura, and Anura.
Yeah.
Got
There you
it.
go.
All right. So I'm going to be honest. The last 10 minutes, I've been thinking like, let me make sure I say this right. Make sure I say this right, and then I stumbled. But either way, it's all about learning. We're here to grow. We're here to learn. But I do appreciate you making time and sharing your story with us here on the podcast. And I would love to have you back on for more conversation. And like I said, we're gonna get you on the horror podcast, and we're gonna pick a theme or a film, and we're gonna discuss and get a good conversation out of it. But in the meantime, here we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. And before we get out of here, do you have any shout outs or mentions that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Shout out. Well, shout out to you for having me on your show and inviting me on so you like horror. Yeah. So you think you like horror? Yeah.
Nope.
I every single time I think of it that way. So you think you like horror, but that's not it. So you like horror.
Yeah, I've considered a name change, but because somebody told me they didn't like the name, I'm stubborn. I was like, well, now it stays forever. So it's something I'm trying to work on in therapy right now.
Well, I shout out to me and to Freedom to Fight, and
Absolutely.
the development of that platform. And I want to mention that I am an EMDR therapist, trauma therapist, yes, but specifically an EMDR therapist. And I'll talk about that more on my platform. But I just wanted to make a note of that because we were talking about therapy and different ways for people to heal. Talk therapy is not always the way to go, but no, I'm not a part of any community yet. So I don't have a lot of shout outs. I'm sorry. Yeah. But yeah, Freedom to Fight is on all podcast platforms, and my Instagram is at freedom_to_fight. I also have a Instagram page for my counseling practice, which is Freedom to Connect. I am a part of another private practice that I don't know if I can promote just yet. So okay. I'm going to hold off on that. But yeah, I'm on YouTube as well, Spotify, Facebook, all of those. So come check out my podcast as well.
And I will be sure to put all the links in the show notes so that way people can find you. So,
and Dante, if I haven't asked you before, I would love to meet in person and roll together. Like that is my focus for 2024.
I'm all for it. I actually just talked to a buddy last night who's in Ireland, and he's been over here in the States before, and we didn't get the opportunity to roll, but he mentioned that yesterday as we were talking. It's like, dude, next time I'm there, we definitely got to roll. So look, if I had the ability or the facility to do so, I would actually have a big party, a big jiu-jitsu party, and just invite you all out. I'm like, look, let's meet in the middle ground somewhere, and like we're just gonna have a jiu-jitsu party. But look, however we can make that work, I am more than happy to roll. I love jiu-jitsu. I love this martial art. I love what it's made us all capable to do. And where it's taken us, and in the people that it has introduced myself to. So, for me, anyone that I meet that trains and is like, hey, we got to roll sometime soon. Of course. Absolutely. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, I'll record it and put it on my podcast.
For sure. We
Especially
can
if I
make that.
win.
Make it oh, of course. Look, I have no issue with it. Even though I'm a camera shy individual, look, you can record it. Y'all can see me fall on my face as I tend to do once per week. And then I look and say, shake my head. And like, that sucked. Don't do that again. It adds up. But yeah, I'm definitely, up for that role. So we'll make it happen. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. Thank you again for having me.
No problem. Thank you for making the time and just being my guest. And also again have me on your podcast, because if you hadn't reached out to me, this wouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah. And as always, to the listeners, thank you for all the supports. We are fast approaching episode 200 here on the podcast, and I'd been trying to rack my brain on trying to think of some kind of special episode to do. I have an ideal, and it's special to me, especially with the guests that I'm looking to have on. I've got some details to work out on it, but hopefully we can make this a very memorable episode for everyone that listens to the show, and also just a good experience for the guests that I'm trying to get involved. And as we get closer, more details will be revealed. It's not like it's anything special like a Michael Jackson concert or anything, where it's like, oh, the big secret. Like, no, it's just, I'm just trying to make sure we can get everything, set up logistically, with time and locations. But otherwise, thank you as always for the support. I love you guys. It's been a wild journey thinking like, man, who's going to listen to a podcast by me? And, now people are listening. I'm like, holy shit. You're not supposed to listen to me. Like I'm that character in the movie where it's like, don't listen to that guy. So thank you for just supporting. I want to give a big shout out to my friends over at Nerd Rage Radio, Bobby, Chris, Joe, Marilyn, Phil, Ricky Ticky, Raul, Chucky O, all you fellas, everyone over there, part of that team. Thank you so much. If it were not for Nerd Rage Radio, I wouldn't be recording podcasts, and that's just a fact. So go check that podcast out. I'm trying to actually get Joe back here on the show very, very soon. He works out and he eats right, and I want to talk to him about it because I don't do either of those things. So maybe he can encourage me and get me back on the wagon. Well, also want to give a shout out to my other podcast, So You Like Horror. If you're into scary movies, go check it out. We actually have just wrapped up 2023, and this coming Friday will be the last episode of the year for So You Like Horror, as we wrap up the Horror Through the Decades theme for this year. We started in the 1920s and we worked all the way up to the 2020s, and we did a wrap-up show with the original host of the show, myself, my wife Sarah Beth, my friend Teresa, and Marilyn Phil, who I mentioned from Nerd Rage Radio. So that episode will be coming out this Friday. And then as we move into 2024, our new theme will be cursed films. So we're working on the content for that right now and trying to get it all together. We're going to be talking about films that have had historical and questionable curses and whatnot going on behind the scenes. So if you're into that kind of kooky stuff, go check it out. And also for that podcast, just a big score for me, there's a TikTok account and a podcaster that I follow by the name of Horror_Chronicles. I'm a huge fan of them, and they're actually going to be a guest. I reached out to them and was like, hey, I saw you did an episode on cursed films. Would you be willing to be a guest, during this theme? And they say yes. So I'm fucking excited. Part of my language. I'm just really, really excited about that. Yeah, some people get weird about it. I had someone ask me not to cuss once. I was like, fuck off. But yeah, go check that podcast out if you're into scary movies. If you're not, then don't listen to it at all. That you don't have to. But if you're into it, go check it out. I appreciate you all listening. And yeah, otherwise that's it. That's all we got for y'all this week. Yeah, if y'all got any questions, you know what to do. Shoot me a message. Want to be a guest? Shoot me a message. If you got any theme suggestions, shoot me a message. I'm open to all of it. If you're promoting a book, shoot me a message. Let's talk about it. Whatever you want to do, shoot me a message. I'm here. We will talk. We'll have a good time, and we're going to have a blast. It's super laid back. Otherwise, I love you all. Thank you so much. You guys keep listening to the show, and we're going to definitely keep making them. Thank you so much, everyone, and ciao.
Deep with it. Now let me sing a song.